understand the Yojana edition this month, and it focuses on health and environment. The very first topic is Vandhan Kendra. Now, as a part of Sankalp Se Siddhi, the village areas have started with, along with the state implementation agencies and TriFed, an effort to have the collective efforts at the village level, mainly for the tribal. So local grassroots production, for example, tamarinds to be de-seeded, or manufacturing of cups by sal leaves, making wild honey, all those kind of activities have been given a thrust under the Vandhan Kendra, and this Vandhan Kendra has been benefiting the village and the tribal areas. The next is a report on health. The health report has been published by Lancet Commission, and it talks about the prevalence of diabetes in 15 states in India. It has revealed that 7% of the people in India are already having diabetes, and 10 to 15% are at a pre-diabetes level, which show early signs of higher blood sugar levels. Now, the states where higher prevalence of these diseases have been seen is the states with higher GDP. Mainly Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and Chandigarh have shown higher cases of diabetes, in contrast to the states like Jharkhand and Bihar. Also, higher income levels have been correlated with higher prevalence of diabetes. Now, if we talk about diseases, the poor, most of the diseases we see are related to malnutrition and cholera. However, in rich, the diseases which are non-communicable diseases like diabetes, cancer have been, heart diseases have been more common. Also, we have seen that WHO identified 4 major non-communicable diseases which are at the highest risk factors, and those are alcohol, tobacco, poor diet intake and lack of physical activities. So those are the 4 major risk factors which lead to higher prevalence of non-communicable diseases like diabetes, cancer, heart ailments. Also, along with that, higher intake of salt, higher intake of sugar and low nutritional fat has low nutritional levels of diet and higher fats have led to higher prevalence of non-communicable diseases. Now, the next important thing that we need to understand is how human and ecological balance have been changing. It all started with the Industrial Revolution, which took place nearly 250 years ago. It started with coal and steam, and then with the second round of Industrial Revolution, we had electricity and oil. The third round focused on computers. The fourth round talks about automation. Now, all these changes in the digital world, in the technological world, have created a new dimension for human existence. We have focused on how nuclear energy at one end can be used for useful purpose, but at the other end can also be used for creating atom bombs. So there are 5 key realities which are directly linked to our life in 21st century. Those are the issues related to global warming, climate change, issues related to nuclear weapon, issues related to geopolitics, religious extremism and poverty and inequality. Now, we have seen some of the major events in the last couple of years. For example, bushfires in Brazil and Australia in 2009. It is believed that 6.3 million hectares of land has been demolished because of these bushfires. Similarly, lot of extinction of species have been seen. 3 bird species, 2 frogs, 1 shark, 1 snail and one of the largest freshwater fishes have been declared extinct in 2019. Pandemics like SARS, COVID-19 have been seen, and then forest fires in California, which destroyed more than 100 million hectares of land, have been seen responsible for these events. Now, also, we have seen that climate change, global warming have been some of the major issues that we need to address, and Paris Accord, which talks about commitment by the countries to maintain the rise of global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius as per the pre-industrial level by 2100 is important. The next is smart agriculture. Now, definitely in India, we say 55% of the population is dependent on agriculture. 17.8% of the gross value added is from agriculture. But when it comes to yield, India is far lower in terms of cereal crop yield as compared to United States and China. Also, the average farm size of a farmer is very small, just less than 1 hectare or around 1 hectare, and as a result we can say nearly 86% of the farmers in India have small holdings of land. Since they have small holdings of land, they cannot bring in automation, they cannot bring in expensive technologies, and therefore the whole system is more related to subsistence and intensive agriculture. We need to see that with the changes globally, we have seen in order to increase the yield efficiency, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics, use of drone, automation is required to bring agriculture at par with what has been at in the other nations as well. Recently, National Bamboo Mission has been launched in 2018 and 19 for the holistic development of bamboo sector. Now, even industries like Agarbatti manufacturing industry has been linked with the cluster-based approach from bamboo sector, and creations of Agarbatti or making of Agarbatti has been seen as one of the immediate steps which has given employment to a huge number of rural people. The next important topic of discussion is e-waste. Now, e-waste is a very important topic from environmental point of view, because 95% of the e-waste is managed by the informal sector, which operates under lower levels of working conditions, and recycling and dismantling is not proper. Overall in the world, we have seen that 53.6 million tons of e-waste was generated, and of which only 17.4% has been recycled. So there is a lot more scope for recycling still. Now, e-waste segregation occurs at 4 stages. First is at the stage of generation, where the waste is generated, at the stage where the waste is collected, the level of segregation and treatment. Now, what happens is there are various forms of e-waste collection. First is a formal process where a consumer, when uses the electronic waste, disposes it to the recycling centers or donates it to the place where the recycling unit can take care of it. The second is a formal setup where a specialized treatment facility is available specifically for those units who are creating the waste generation at the unit itself, or there could be waste bin collections where people openly dump the product along with the household waste, and therefore dismantling and segregation becomes important and difficult. Now, Indian electronics sector has boomed significantly. We have seen that from $11 billion we have jumped up to $32 billion in terms of the electronic market in India in last 5 years, and this 5 years period has been important because we have seen how much quick jump we have seen in terms of electronic industry and usage. So generation of electronic waste definitely has increased, and management and streamlining of this waste becomes important. So it includes the extended producer responsibility, where the producer is required to collect and recycle the electronic items. Now, in the electronic items, there are various metals that have been used, various elements that have been used. For example, battery has cobalt oxide at the positive electrode and graphite at the negative electrode. Similarly, the casing of the battery is of aluminium, and the casing of the phone is of magnesium. So these are the elements that are used. So in battery casing, we have the use of aluminium. In phone casing, you have use of magnesium. Similarly, plastics including flame retardant like bromine and nickel have been used to reduce the electromagnetic interference. Wiring, we all know copper is used, highly ductile. Tantalum is used for microcapacitors. Similarly, indium tin oxide, which is a compound made of indium and tin, is used in touch screen, and that helps to conduct electricity in touch screen devices. Similarly, nickel is used in microphones. Tin and lead is used for soldering the various electronic components. So those are some of the common elements that are used. Now, as we said, if we do not have a proper infrastructure for disposal, it becomes a difficult task. So we have a model that has been seen in Japan, which is explained here, and this model explains that municipality has a responsibility to pick up the waste from the customer now, or the customer can deliver it to the municipality. Now the municipality send it to the collection centers. Now these collection centers send it to the recycling plant. From the recycling plant it goes to the manufacturer and finally to the retailer. Retailer sells it back to the customer, and customer can also deliver the waste either to the retailer, who can deliver it to the designated collection sites. But the segregation of e-waste is at the source, and that is what is very important. We need to have this into mind. Now there are two approaches, Copernicus approach and Neo-Malthian approach. Copernicus approach says that resources are in plenty and our ability to adopt will compensate for any future shortages. However, Neo-Malthian theory says that sustainable development and recycling is only one of the ways. So overall, our idea is to reduce the carbon footprint, more of recycling that should be done. The recycling plants should be localized, so it reduces the energy cost, it reduces the transportation cost, and making it locally accessible gives better benefit to the customer, who can supply it directly to the recycling centers. The next important topic for discussion is yoga. Now yoga, the word means union, so it's a union of individual with the god, and there are integration of 4 yoga that we talk, and those are the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Raj Yoga. Patanjali is the highest authority in terms of Raj Yoga, and the system of Patanjali is the system for the Sankhya philosophy. Now Yoga Vasishtha, who basically explains the yoga to Sri Ram, explains how the yoga has been given, and the Sankhya Yoga is also one of the important components of Bhagavad Gita. Now Patanjali basically talks about Yoga Sutra and yoga as Chit Vrit Nirodh. That means that it is the path through which we can make our mind serene and our thought process much more smoother. So we focus on the concept of Ashtanga Yoga. So there are 8 limbs of the yoga. The first is Yam, which focuses on the 5 ethical principles similar to that followed in Jainism: Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha. The next is Niyam. Niyam is the observance. It is again 5, which is the Soch, that is the purification, Santosh, Tap, Swadhyay and Ishwar. So those are some of the major niyams. The next is asan, or the postures. Now the sensitivity of our body should be the sensitivity as of the index finger, and this explains how a yogi has a sensitivity throughout the body. So postures in yoga are very essential. Then pranayam, which focuses on the breathing movement and how inhalation, exhalation and retention of breath actually governs the yogic exercises. The next is Pratyahan, which talks about withdrawal of the senses, and the next is Dharna and Dhyan. So Dhyan is the stage of high concentration, pure conscious stage, and Dharna is a kind of stage where internal quest for knowledge begins, and it is a point where concentration is all the energies are concentrated towards a single point and being channelized into a single self. The next is sustainable health. Now this is a very interesting topic. We have seen that Cuba, which is one of the major manufacturers of sugar, one of the island nations close to North America, has been seeing a huge economic boom in the last 10 years. Now it was not just an economic boom, it was also a food boom, and it was seen that people were more prone to non-communicable disease. So Fidel Castro, who was during that period, started a special period which was known as Periodo Especiale, which means that we would have drastic changes. So all kind of public transport was stopped. Numerous bicycles from China was imported, and it was made compulsory to have cycling. Also, home gardening was emphasized, and the food habits along with the physical activities were focused. As a result, the obesity levels, which tripled in a period of just 10 to 15 years, started to decline. Also, more advocacy on education, self-regulation became one of the major ideas, and focus on local foods. So what our great grandfathers told, moving to the traditional, seasonal and local foods should be adopted was adopted as a system in Cuba, and this significantly reduced the amount of the proportion of non-communicable diseases in Cuba. So similar models could be followed in other nations as well. If we talk about the world average, world today is fatter than it was 10 years back. That means at one end we talk about a kind of seesaw, where at one end we have extreme malnutrition, at the other end we have more cases of obesity rising. So at one end we have people with just 3 square meals a day. However, at another end we are having people who can eat so much excess that they create problems because of overeating. Now 20 to 30% of the obese people normally are 100% fit and healthy otherwise, as per what we call as metabolically healthy obese. So obesity in itself is not a disease. If the obese person is able to maintain the life properly, we say 20 to 30% of the obese people are fit. They do not have any kind of diseases. But what happens is, when they want to lose weight and they start to lose weight very quickly, so let's say they attempt to lose 80% or 20%, 60% of the weight in a small fragment of time, what happens is they regain that weight because of the changes in the eating habit or the changes in the pattern, and as a result, what happens now, a metabolically healthy obese changes into a unmetabolically unhealthy obese. So the person now is an unhealthy obese and has nearly 100 to 150% more chances of getting a non-communicable disease than prior to it. So this is a very important difference. What is a metabolically healthy obese and what is a metabolically unhealthy obese? We have various practices that have been declared. Now, health for all has been one of the slogans of United Nations since the convention at the Alma-Ata Declaration. Now, this Alma-Ata, which is Almaty in Kazakhstan recently, is one of the centers where primary health care has been given, and urgent need has been given for all health and development workers to promote health for all across the world. World Bank has been working significantly in this cause, and the idea is 1/3 of the estimated disease burden and 1/5 of the middle income countries should now have minimum health package even for low income and low paying people. So health becomes a very important declaration, and the Alma-Ata Declaration 1978, in cognizance with WHO and United Nations Human Resource, has been working on it. So what we have seen is alternative healthcare systems. For example, in countries like Cuba, there is a drive to ensure that all elderly people get cataract operation in public facilities. Similarly, the universal health care should be without any charge, as in the case of Thailand. 77% of the beds are there in public sector. We have good healthcare systems which are seen in Cuba, China, Costa Rica, Malaysia, Venezuela, Thailand. Even healthcare expenditure in Thailand is 1.7% of the GDP, which rose to 2.7% of the GDP, much higher than that of India. If we talk about number of doctors per thousand, India has only 7 doctors per 10,000 population. However, Singapore has 18 doctors per 10,000 population. Philippines around 11 doctors per 10,000 population. Malaysia at 9.4 doctors per 10,000 population. That means India still lags far behind. Under the National Health Policy 2017, we have given a target of 2.5% of the GDP to be spent on health and related issues. If we focus on the public health expenditure in nominal terms, we have seen that in India it's just 1,657, which is much lower than Sri Lanka at 5,000 and Indonesia at 3,500. Also, the WHO norm of doctor to population ratio is very low in India, and specifically worse in rural India. Across India, we say it is 1:1,404. However, in rural areas, it is 1:11,000. That means there is a huge divide between the availability of medical facilities and doctors in an urban area versus the rural area. Also, under 5 deaths in India, one of the major cause is malnutrition, undernutrition. 45% of all the deaths under 5 is related to malnutrition in India. 47% of the children in India are underweight, and we have seen that the number of stunted children globally have been declining significantly from 257 million to 161 million, which is a decrease of 37%, but no significant figures have been seen in India. Also, we have seen that nearly 82 crore children suffer from chronic malnutrition. 200 crore people suffer from food insecurity across the world, and India is ranked at nearly 102 out of 117 in global hunger index as per 2019, and India's score is 30.3, which is under a category of serious hunger category. Only 4 nations were in the category of alarming, which is above the serious hunger category, and only one country in extremely alarming conditions of hunger, which is the Central African Republic. Also, in 2020, the hunger index, we have seen that we have 94 ranking out of 107 ranking, which is again in the serious hunger category. However, 14% of the population we have seen is undernourished. Nearly second of 17.3% of the children under 5 are wasted, and there are significantly number of children who are stunted. So there is a huge population of wasting, huge population of stunting, and huge population of undernourishment that is seen. The next is gender disparity. We have seen a huge amount of gender disparity. The male biasness. Now we have seen the number of admissions in institute like AIIMS, which is around 23.8 lakh patients, but of that only 37% are females. A significant number is male. Now, as per the mental health survey, India has seen significant number of mental illness cases with 13.7%, which accounts for nearly 15 crore patients that need active intervention, of which only 49% have the facility within 25 kilometer radius, and 80% of the people do not have health insurance. 28% of the global suicide cases occur in India. Bihar alone has seen 30% rise in mental disorder cases, and Keowal in Bhojpur district has seen nearly 50,000 mental cases patients. So the mental hospital there has seen a significant jump in number of the mental cases. Now these are some of the prevalent diseases that we need to focus in India. As we mentioned, mental disorders, focusing on malnutrition, undernutrition is one of the major concerns. The next is India's approach for vaccination. Now India's approach has been of vaccine Maitri, which is synonymous to Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, and it comes in line with the Bahujan Sukhai, Bahujan Hitai. We are also focusing on Mission Sanjeevani. Now in India, we have been focusing on vaccine development. So Covishield by AstraZeneca, developed by Serum Institute. Similarly, the indigenous Covaxin developed by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with ICMR and National Institute of Virology. Similarly, we now have emergency use approval for Sputnik, which is the Sputnik 5, the production for which would start by Dr. Reddy's laboratory. In India, we have supplied nearly 56 lakh doses under grant amount, and nearly 100 lakh doses as per part of commercial supplies. Also, vaccines have been supplied to nearby countries. Bhutan and Maldives were the first nations to receive vaccinations from India. And then we have CARICOM countries, which is the Caribbean and the Pacific Island states, along with Nicaragua, as some of the nations which have been receiving vaccinations from India. However, as the world is changing, we are now moving towards an era of work from home culture. Gandhian approach has been brought into light tremendously. Now, what is important? The first important principle is non-violence. We need to focus that there is a need to understand that exploitation of labor in all forms is not good. It is equivalent to violence. So if the labor is being hired, the labor should be reimbursed properly. The dignity of labor implies that no labor is menial. All kind of labor is very, very important, and it is indicative that man is much more important than machines. So replacing all manual labor by machines should not be a solution. We also need to focus that India is a land of agriculture, and more jobs in the non-agricultural sector or the manufacturing sector is the need of hour. So what can be done is the agro based industries that can be given a thrust. Also, cooperatives have brought in tremendous change. Amul cooperative is one such example. So decentralization of the process of growth can be brought by bringing in more cooperatives, and Gandhian philosophy aligns to it. We have with COVID-19 also seen that two things are very, very important which have been emphasized by the Gandhian philosophy long back, and that is cleanliness and hygiene. Also, lockdown has focused on new normal of working. Now with new normal of working, employees can work for longer hours, but they have to maintain a balance between house and work, and they cannot be available 24/7. Also, they have to manage their stress simultaneously. A lot of people who used to commute in the public transport are now opting for safer transport means. So there is more shift from the public transport to personalized travel to workspace, which is now preferred. Eco-friendly urban transport methods and manufacturing systems are also focused. So those are some of the important things that we need to understand. And upgradation of infrastructure, bringing in additional investments in infrastructure, and proper compensation of the employees based on their work must be done. So those are some of the important things that we need to take into account from the Gandhian philosophy in the life, COVID and post-COVID era. So those were some of the key highlights that we have covered in Yojana. We would be covering many more interesting sessions. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Have a wonderful day ahead.